Welcome to the video for December, and today we're going to paint a beautiful little British robin, and I'll show you step by step how to do that. And we'll also have the robin just standing in the snow since it's December for something a little bit festive. So if you'd like to learn how to paint a watercolor bird in a few simple steps, then keep on watching. Today we're painting a British robin, and I already have a few colors mixed up. I'm just going to mix up some browns, and I'll talk about these colors as well a little bit while we're mixing. Just using an inexpensive brush from the dollar store to mix my colors. My gray that I have mixed up here, part of this is watered down neutral tint, and the other is a watered down Moon Glow color by Daniel Smith. These are great for subtle shadows on birds and animals. Next, I'll be needing to mix up some brown for the body of the bird, and I am going to use some sepia for this. It's a nice brown color and it granulates, so it creates some nice texture. Then I'm going to mix up another puddle of sepia, but I'm going to add in some ultramarine blue, and this will make it a bit more gray. Then I'm going to mix up some burnt umber. That's a lighter, warmer brown. And then I have my homemade black mix here, and that is some lunar violet, neutral tint, and burnt sienna. And now for the red, Ready Orange. I'm going to mix up a few colors. This is already sort of a muted down orange that I had. I'm going to use my Scarlet Lake, my yellow orange color, and then I am just going to dull it down ever so slightly with a bit of ultramarine blue. Then I'm going to add in some yellow ochre here. And then I'm going to go for light red. And then add in some transparent red oxide by Daniel Smith. And then I'll make another little puddle over here, transparent red oxide, with a little bit of the Scarlet Lake mixed in. And we'll just see how those colors look. We'll swatch those. I'm just going to put a paper towel over my painting so I don't splash any color on it. With my number 2 brush, I'll just pick up my colors and see how they look. So Moon Glow, neutral tint, sepia, sepia with ultramarine blue, and burnt umber. We've got our Scarlet Lake yellow-orange mix, transparent red oxide with Scarlet Lake, yellow ochre, and lastly, a bit of our homemade black mix. And then if we want to use some true black for the eye, we can use lunar black, which is a black pigment, but it is still transparent and it granulates a lot, by Daniel Smith. And that should be enough color for us to start our project. I'm going to start off by wetting most of the bird, as I usually do, besides the beak and eye and legs. Just a nice clean water wash. This is a number 4 brush. Very important to get A very even wash right in the lines to set up for success of the first layer of your painting. Now, it may seem like I took a long time to do that, but that is the way to get a really even wash on your first layer. And it's also allowed a bit of time for the water to soak into the paper so that my paint will spread out nicely but not run out too quickly and spread out too far. Okay, I am going to start with the red, I believe. Try that out. It goes all the way around the eye, up onto the forehead. I'm going to pull out a little bit of fluff as I line the belly here. I think a few of those went out a bit farther than I wanted, so I'm just going to grab a clean brush, just dab up those ones. Dry that up with a paper towel. That's good. I'll see if I still have enough moisture here to keep this spreading out. Still wet enough right now. Grabbing the yellow ochre. Red oxide. So it is important to have color variation, even though this all kind of looks like the red part of the bird. Trying to identify different tones to give it more depth. I'm going to leave that and probably just leave that to dry because I'll need to re-wet the body to do the next step. I am re-wetting the bird now using a number 6 brush just to spread more water quickly. Switching to the number 4. And now I will add some color in. Just seeing where the orange and the brown separate here. And I will let that dry before I do the next layer. Now I'm going to wet the body again, just this lower portion, to add in the gray fluff. Again, just making a nice, even, clean water wash. And taking it up into the colored area. And we will just leave that and not the legs. Just going to also quickly mix up a little bit of light red and ultramarine blue to make a bit of a neutral gray. Just going to dab my brush off and just drop some of that in. And I'm just going to sort of make some brush marks over that line and then also create a bit of fluff here again. And now I'll let that dry. Now I am going to re-wet the brown part of the bird, and then make a bit of a defined edge there for where the wings are. Add a bit more color into this area. Bit of a cat hair there. I'm taking some of my burnt umber now, and I'm just going to drop in a little bit of this color. Taking some sepia and ultramarine. As that wash is drying, I'm able to get more of a defined edge for the wing there. I'm going to turn my paper and actually switch to a number 2 brush. Just defining some of the dark areas on the tail feathers here. Now I'm rinsing my brush and I'm just going to soften these darker areas in a bit. Just pull out again a few little bits of fluff there. Just finding those little lines a little bit more. Alright, so I will let that dry. Just going to work on the beak a little bit more, grabbing some of my homemade black mix with my 00 brush, just defining the bottom of it a bit more. I'm just rinsing and dabbing my brush, twisting my brush as I dab for a nice fine point. Now I'm going to move over to the neutral tint for the top. Often the top of the beak and the bottom will look like different colors because of the way the light's hitting it. And then I'm just going to take this in a little bit more. While that's drying, I'm just going to move on to the feet, still using my 00 brush. I'm going to use my putty eraser to just lighten the pencil. Just laying the color in on the bottom sides of the toes or the claws here, and then with a damp brush just blending it since it's such a tiny area. That one is a bit too dark there. Okay, and then just neutral tint again. And this bird is actually just the way I drew it, standing in the snow, even though it doesn't show that on the reference picture, but it's coming up into winter now, so I wanted to make a snowy robin scene. So you could use this maybe for a Christmas card if you wanted. But we will do the snow last after the feet are dry. I'm just going to dry this with a hairdryer before we move on to the next step. I also wanted to give you a little channel update. I've switched from doing a weekly video to one longer monthly video because I wanted to still be able to produce other things for my art and also have some more time to paint since I do work full time. So you can count on a monthly full-length tutorial video each month, as well as any extras I have time to post. I'll do that as well. And if you want to check out more of my work or other classes that I offer, you can check out my website, which is www.laurawatson.ca, and you can see more of what I've been up to there as well. With my number 4 brush, I'm just going to re-wet the gray and red area on the bird, our sweet little robin. Now I am going to take the first orange mixture and just add a little bit more color here and there. Rinsing the brush out and just adding in a little bit more gray. Looks like that's dried up actually quite a bit, so maybe not. So that is too dry, so I'm just going to smooth that out and then dry it and re-wet it again. All right, I'm just going to re-wet the gray area now. That should be enough to take my number 2 brush, that was the number 4, and just taking a bit of a darker gray now, the neutral tint. I'll just add a little bit of the ultramarine in there. And this part is more gray and this part is more white, so I'm just going to add a little bit more gray and darker color here. Switching back to the number 4. Now I'm just sort of stroking out some of that area with the 00 brush. And then adding a little bit more in the bottom here. Just dampening it a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm just re-wetting this area here one more time, just to even this out a little bit. Just add a little bit more, just like that. But if I hadn't re-wet it, I would get a hard edge and it wouldn't look as good. So just let that dry. And I'll go back to the feet while that's drying. Just see a little hard edge right there. Just pull that out. Actually, I'm just going to add a little bit darker color just around where that leg comes out. And then just blend it into the leg. And I will grab the Moon Glow now for the legs rather than the neutral tint. Just making a line down the back, rinsing out my 00 brush. And then I'm just creating a few spots of shadow. So just a few dark patches on the little toes here. All right, we're getting close to being done. I'm just going to add in the snow. I'll lighten up these pencil lines. Quickly dry these. I think they're dry, but just to make sure with the hairdryer, and then add the snow in. Now I have a number 2 brush. I'm just going to wet in between and around the feet. Just drag the water out a bit. Drag it out and down. Now I'll grab the neutral tint mixed with the Moon Glow. And though they are the same colors as the feet, I'm just going to leave a bunch of white indicating the snow. And just use this for the shadow on the snow. And that should blend nicely with the color of the feet. And that's good enough. The snow, and the white of the paper is shining through to look like the white of the snow. So originally I thought I was finished, but what I've decided to do is add some definition and shading around the face and eye that I see on the reference photo to give it just a little bit more realism. And I'm going to do this wet on dry rather than wet into wet for more control, and it will also be more dramatic of a color that way. So I'm going to take just some of the sepia and the burnt umber mixed together. And I'm just going to take a little bit of the red and mix that in too. I have my number 2 brush. And now I am just going to lay in some color following the shape of the feathers and shadow. Rinse my brush, dab it on a paper towel, and smooth out the edges. And I'm just going to keep doing a little bit of that around the eye and the beak. But I want to make sure I leave the red of the face showing as well, so I don't want to cover the whole area. Now I'm just rinsing my brush and making sure there's no paint on it and just swiping through to make sure I do have some of that red still showing. Grabbing more red and mixing it into the brown. I'm going to add some ultramarine blue. Just adding some more shadow around the eye. A little bit more sepia, just to make it much darker there, just a tiny area, blending that out. Grabbing more sepia and burnt umber again. Number 2 brush, also just going to very lightly just add in a bit of definition here on the wing, rinsing my brush. Then just sort of blend out the top there a little bit and just soften that. And so I'm just sort of painting in a little dark shape that I see here to add that extra bit of shadow. Okay, I'm going to dry that. Now, excuse me, now I'm just going to get a little bit more of my light red mixed with some of the yellow orange I have. So if you used a bright red, thinking, you know, this is a red-breasted robin, you'd be right that it's red breast, but it's actually not really red. It's a bunch of browns and oranges and a bit of red. So it looks more natural using these colors. Watering that down, I'm just going to swoop over a little bit of the shadow I added in, just to brighten up some of the areas, a bit more cohesive with the face, but you still have that nice shadow in now. Rinsing my brush again, dabbing and twisting the tip. Now just sort of softening that red into the areas we already have painted. So because I have dried everything completely, I can do this. If you did not dry that shadow underneath and did this, you'd get a mucky mess. So you must remember to dry. Just adding a little bit more wet and dry right here so that there's a bit more of a transition now, not just going from dark to much lighter. I like to do most of the painting wet into wet to get nice soft edges, but then to get some definition you do need to do a little bit of dry brushing or wet onto dry most times. Little noisy upstairs, sorry for the clunking. All right, I am going to leave it at that. That is our cute little British robin. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys, and happy holidays to you and your family. I hope that you have a wonderful holiday, however you celebrate it this year, and I'll see you in the next video.